Alright, so with this problem, um, you did a lot of this in Chapter 2. So it's calculate a predetermined rate, determine how much overhead needs to be applied to the jobs, using a T account. Can you record or show where the actual overhead and where the applied overhead goes, and then is it, determine if the amount is over or under applied. So I might try to crank through all of these one time. So what's the key? The first thing we need to figure out is how does a company apply its overhead when it's determining a predetermined overhead rate. In this case, it says it's machine hours. So in order to figure out the predetermined overhead rate, we need to figure out what is the estimated overhead cost. So 250,000. We're going to divide that by how they allocate it, which is machine hours. So what's the total estimated machine hours? 125 hours. So this is manufacturing overhead. This is machine hours. That gives us a rate, a predetermined overhead rate. And this looks like it's $2 of overhead per machine hour. Okay. Remember that it's possible that your manufacturing overhead could be, they could give you fixed overhead and variable overhead. And you have to add those two together to get the total manufacturing overhead. Okay, well, how much will be applied to the jobs? Well, we need to see how many machine hours was used during the month of May. Right here it tells us that 10,500 machine hours were used during May. We multiply that times the rate of $2 of overhead per machine hour, and that gives us, my guess is that's $21,000 of applied overhead. Now, scroll down a little bit. Draw a T account for manufacturing overhead. No, that's not too hard. Right? Manufacturing overhead. Enter the actual. Actuals are always debits and applieds are always credits. So the actual overhead goes on the debit side, and it tells us the actual is 22,000. The applied you just calculated here at 21,000. And that's all you have to do with that one. So using that same T account, though, let's go ahead and do part 4. Calculate the amount of over or under applied overhead. Okay. So now we need to figure out the difference in the accounts. Well, we have a balance of 1,000. Is it over or is it under applied? The way you think this through is here's how much actual overhead we had. Here's how much was applied to the jobs. Did we apply more than the actual or less than the actual? In this case, we applied less, which means it's under applied by 1,000. Had we had perfect knowledge, we would have applied $22,000 of overhead, not $21,000 of overhead.